Here talking to Jake West, director of Doghouse.
Hello.
Hi, Jake. How did you first get involved in the project?
The project of Doghouse actually started with my friendship with the writer Dan Schafer. Dan comes from the comic books world. He's done the comics Dogwitch, The Scribbler, Indigo Vertigo for Image Comics, and he was a fan of my earlier film Evil Aliens, and through a mutual friend, a journalist in fact, we actually met one evening and we sort of both liked each other's work, and we were discussing it'd be great to do a project. So a couple of years passed by and we were just mates, and then one day his girlfriend had come down with the flu, and he kind of accused her of sort of looking like a zombie. And we thought, hold on, that's a good idea. So if you genderised a zombie outbreak, i.e. only affected one gender, then that would be an original spin on what we think is a fairly it's hard to get an original spin on that genre. So we thought, that's actually a new idea. Like, it seems to be a new idea, and I can't think of anyone who's done that. And we were thinking somebody must have done it, and then we couldn't. There didn't seem to be anyone who had done that. So the script built from there. But Dan wrote the script. We developed that over about a year, and then we took it into. Producer Terry Stone took it into Carnaby Films, and we got the project set up there. So it was through my friendship with Dan, really, that it came about.
You've always been a fan of zombie films?
Yeah, I mean, I love horror films. Love all the classic kind of zombie stuff. Obviously, the Romero films. Which as a teenager I kind of grew up with those. Day of the Dead is actually my favourite Romero, even though everyone else would say Dawn. But yeah, I mean, zombie films are. It's interesting because towards the end of the 80s, early 90s, they kind of died out, and it's quite interesting. And now we've had such a big glut of them again. It almost feels that perhaps there's too many now.
Yep.
That was my one concern actually when we were doing it, because it's never too good to be too close to the end of the cycle, because people get fed up of it. But because we thought we had a fresh spin on it, that we thought that would work. But yeah, now it's beginning to get to a point where I think zombies have become oversaturated, and maybe it looks like now it's vampires and werewolves that seem to be coming back in.
Particularly on television.
Well, television with True Blood, but you've there seems to be
the Vampire Diaries.
Yeah, the Vampire Diaries, and there's Blood Ties,
yep.
And I think there's another one as well, which I can't remember the name of it. And then in the movies you've got Twilight, obviously, and all of the inevitable Twilight imitators.
The Wolfman.
Then you've got Wolfman, and so it's kind of interesting the way the classic monsters seem to cycle around. But yeah, certainly zombies now, I think maybe it's time for them to go back to the grave and be shot in the head for a while.
They should start developing the next Frankenstein movie.
It's
been a while.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, when you're doing a movie, you tend to just. I never really sort of think of it from a marketing point of view. It just depends whether you have a good idea and then you develop that idea and it becomes something. And what's strange is that often you'll have an idea and then a bunch of other people seem to have a similar idea. Alan Moore called it the universality of ideas. Like, you're in the idea space and different people seem to grab it at the same time.
That's why I often see two films that are very similar come out about the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, obviously sometimes what can happen sometimes is that if people know the studio, say they're going to be doing a version of Burke and Hare soon, aren't they? The grave robber thing. You'll probably find a load of sort of grave robber films coming.
John Landis is doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
gets signed on.
Exactly. So but I'm sure you're going to get a lot of these little indie companies. Like people like the Asylum certainly will probably have theirs will come out first, won't it? So there seems to be an industry in rip-off sort of films as well. But that's just because if you go to film markets, I don't know if you've been to Cannes or to AFM or anywhere like that. But all these independents always they try and sell these kind of rip-off films as well. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows like the Asylum always rip off every single film. Instead of snakes on a plane, they did snakes on a train, which is kind of dumb, really. Not really the way to do it. Very dumb. Yeah. Yeah.
So what was the shoot like?
The shoot
it looked very bloody.
Yeah, I mean, because I'd done Evil Aliens, I mean, it didn't seem so bloody to me, but other people seem to have found it so. But I kind of seem to have become immune to gore levels, and I always want it to be a lot bloodier. So I thought it was quite clean, and it always surprises me when people find it.
It comes across. I mean, the idea of the one gender being effective was a nice idea, but it comes across very much as it's a battle of the sexes, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a battle of the sexes, but it's very much orientated to sort of reveal the fact that how useless the guys are, not only in their relationships, but also dealing with women just in a general way.
They don't seem to really get women.
Yeah, of course, but I think that actually it kind of fairly accurately depicts blokes, what they're like as soon as they're away from their girlfriends and wives. Because even though people may not want to admit this, I mean, I'm pretty sure that we all know blokes like that, and I know loads of people like that, and it's pretty much how guys are. As soon as as soon as they can get away from their responsibilities, they just drop the whole act of that, and they become that inner sort of bloke. And we were kind of having a laugh at that kind of lad culture. So that's why it was great to use an actor like Danny Dyer, for instance, because he's known for being a Jack the Lad type. And he was very willing to, to subtly subvert that image, because he understood that we were taking the piss out of that kind of thing, and he was really cool with it. And it makes it funny, because we put in a lot of subtext and irony. And if you don't get that, then it's really funny seeing some of the reviews where it gets branded, this is a kind of sexist, misogynistic film, and they don't understand that
it's the opposite of that.
We're laughing at that, and the irony is that the whole point is to you've got to be able to read the film and see it, in a from the opposite view as well.
I mean, in the film, it's the women that have all the power.
Yeah, well, of course, the women are the powerful ones.
Yeah.
But obviously, some people will take umbrage because they see the women as a victim of this virus. But the thing is in terms of a zombie film, everyone's always a victim of a zombie virus, but in this one we chose to make it different. That's what we were doing differently. But we had to choose either the women get affected or the men, and we thought it would be funnier to see these guys who can't deal with their normal relationships. It's funnier to see them dealing with it than to see the women dealing with it. Do you see what I mean? Because they naturally would be more responsible. So it's funnier because it's blokes.
Exactly. Useless blokes at that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the whole point. And they do the wrong thing all the way, and the way they deal with stuff is by running away from it.
Well, that's the easiest way to deal with zombies, isn't it?
Yeah,
Run away.
Pretty much, of course, yeah. Well, pretty much in real life, I'm pretty sure that's what you would try and do. You probably wouldn't want to face up to them.
No.
You probably don't. And if they were girls as well, you wouldn't want to hit them.
No.
You'd feel wrong about it. Do you see what I mean? So actually, your natural influences would not be to sort of stand up and shoot them in the head. And obviously, that was one of the things we wanted. We didn't want them to have any kind of level of caliber weapons or anything like that. It was only the soldier. He had one bullet left, because we deliberately wanted to steer away from that whole zombies endlessly getting shot in the head thing, which we've seen millions of times. Do you see what I mean? We've got one headshot in the film just to pay homage to that, and then that's that done.
When you were developing the film, you would have had to make a decision whether to go with the shambling zombies, the traditional ones, or the new super zombies?
Yeah, well, what we tried to do is we tried to do both, because it was that's why we thought it would be fun if the infection had a stage 1 and a stage 2, and obviously because our zombies are virally infected, they're not the resurrected dead. These are people who are still alive. So there's nothing supernatural about these zombies. They're not resurrected flesh. So they are just virally infected women who have become, victims of this airborne toxin. And because of that, we thought, well, with stage 1, it would be generally like they become very kind of vicious and hateful if there's a man around, but they kind of see red, but their motor functions and stuff are a bit kind of fucked, and they're very confused as to what's going on. So so they've got this much kind of jerkier, slow movement. And the influence that I kind of had for that was really Sam Raimi's Evil Dead, the first Evil Dead, because I love the zombie movements in that. They're kind of jerky, and I always found that quite more disturbing. So when we did our zombie boot camp, I got them to watch a lot of stuff from all the zombies in Evil Dead, and we worked on then their own characterisations, because each of them had different jobs in the town, and we wanted them to have residual memories of what their jobs were. So, for instance, the snipper with her scissors, she's always like doing stuff as if she's cutting, because in her brain she's still got this thing where she's doing a job, and so all of them had different walks and movement. They all had little signature moves. So if you look at it carefully, you'll see that, and we wanted to play around with that. And then as it goes into stage 2, they start communicating with each other, and they get faster, and they start running. So, do you see what I mean? So we did a kind of bit of both, really, and that was kind of, to sort of nod and pay homage to both of those things. But like I say, our zombies are not classic zombies in the fact that they're not dead people. So they're zombirds, which was the notion of this film.
Yeah. So what's the next project you're working on?
Well, there's a few different projects, and I don't really want to jinx them. But there's a few scripts by Dan Schafer, the writer of Doghouse, and we're currently taking them around to some different producers, and it just depends which one we get finance for. So I'd rather announce it once we get a bit, because Doghouse is just coming out at the moment. So it depends, on DVD and how it sells around the world, how it does. What
I'm
kind of budget.
I'm guessing they're horror projects.
Oh yeah, they're genre projects. Yes, different things. But in the past, I've always said, "Oh, this is going to be the next project," and it always ends up being something different. So you end up kind of like. So I don't want to say. As soon as I know, it will be announced officially, and I'm going to go that route this time. So I'm not trying to be obstructive, though.
All right. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.